Hi, I'm Bob. My wife and I started Dynamic Hobbies about 31 years ago. We were down the street for 15 years and we moved here. We've been here 16 years. The thing that puts a smile on my face is when people come in, I see them smiling, or they'll come up and say, "Gosh, you know, you make us feel like family here," or "What an awesome store." You know what, that means more to me than the money. Now obviously you need money to keep the store open, but what is gratifying for me is to know that the effort has gone to make somebody else happy, and that makes me feel good. Now if you were to ask me, who is my favorite person, who do I admire the most, I'd say Walt Disney. And mainly because he took something like a simple amusement park and made it into a theme park where he created different ideas, different scenarios around a roller coaster, around a spaceship ride. And so each time you went into a different place, you get this incredible experience, more than just the ride itself. So on a smaller basis, I wanted to create the same thing here. I wanted you to come into the store and be able to see something besides just boxes on shelves. I wanted to create an experience where the kids come in and they go, "Hey Mom, take me back to Dynamic Hobbies." You know, or a older gentleman goes, "Gosh, you know, I had a lot of fun in there. Let's go down and see Bob," or "Let's go down and see Jim," you know, or the crew. Because they have a great experience, they want to come back. And we have lots of things in here that are not what you would see in a typical hobby shop. In other words, things that are not just the product. For example, I took up a huge part of this store with this train layout. It's 45 feet long and it's 12 feet wide. And the reason I did that is because I wanted, number one, I wanted to have a place to play with my own trains. But the main thing is I wanted to create a lasting effect on somebody that come in to take a look at it. If a young child comes in and sees this is going to make a lasting impression the rest of his life. And I hear parents all the time say, "You know what, my little 3-year-old is saying, let's go to the hobby shop." I hear stuff like that. You know, a person might walk in and say, "God, you know, this is just like the hobby shops that my dad used to take me to, or my grandfather used to take me to." And I hear people come and say, "Gosh, you know, this is a really old-time hobby shop." And that's exactly what I was trying to create. But with the train layout, you can walk all the way around it. You can see everything on it. You can see everything on the backside, everything here. The engines have sound in them. They run remote control. So that's one thing that I wanted to have people look at. If you look over here, these are different little dioramas that people have made from kits. I made this one here. This one here was a friend of mine. His uncle owned a garage and it was in Bakersfield, and so he asked me to make a garage just like it. So that's what I did. And you see different buildings here there's techniques here that people can look at and learn and use on their own stuff instead of just throwing a plastic model together or a wood model together. So that's this area. If we come over here, we have several dioramas here. A gentleman brought these in 25 years ago. They're still here. Unfortunately, he passed away. His name was Dave Abbott, but he let me keep them here. This down here, this is really interesting. This is an actual steam engine. It was made in the 40s and the 50s, and people would buy them as a kit, and then they would put them together. The tender had water in it, and it has a little hose that would run into the boiler. Right back here, there's a little thing that pulls out. It's got cotton in there, and you put kerosene in there, and that's what heats up the boiler. And right here's the arm for the throttle, and you'd have a track outside somewhere, and you'd fire it up and just let it go. You don't see something like this anymore. If you come over here, I had a customer make this. And it's all brass. He made the bridge, he made the engine and the car, and put it in a glass thing. I think it's really unique. Okay, let's go over there. Back here, we have what I call remember when cases. These are cases, this one here, and this one down here. And what these have in them is they have old things. Like down here you have old radios, and across the bottom of the other one we have old radios. Some of these radios date back to the early 1950s when they first started coming out with radio control. Nowadays we have servos that run the surfaces on an airplane or a boat or whatever, and if you move the stick a little bit, it proportionally moves just a little bit. But in the old days, back in the 50s, and I remember this as a child, they had what was called a rubber band escapement. If you look at these things right here, these were servos, and the way that they didn't have electricity going to them, what they had was a long rubber band that you would stretch out, and you would take this winder and wind it up, and the torsion, or I should say the torque on the rubber band would actually turn the little gears on the little servo. And you had a button on your transmitter, like one button, one push down is right and 2 is left. I remember looking for them in a cornfield because they didn't work that good. Right here, I've got so many things that customers have given me. A lot of this is just all donated, but you can take your time and look. Right here, this is a silencer barrel. I don't know exactly what you call it, but it was on a B-25 and from World War II. This right here is a jet engine that they started back using in the 50s. And you would start them with a bicycle pump to force the air into them, and then they would get going, and then it would be on a tether on a line, and these things would get up over 100 miles an hour. Right here, just for instance, this is an old car that was built by a gentleman he brought in. He built this when he was a kid back in the 40s. It's very, very fragile. These are early slot cars. So if you've been in the hobby any length of time, you can come back here and just remember when these things were here. Up top, if you look, there's a submarine. That particular one I went swimming for because it sunk and I had to go get it. But anyway, it goes underwater. Up top are several nice boats that were built. This one right here. A man named Frank built this, and he's since passed away. When I moved from a small town in Illinois out to California, first thing I did was look for a hobby shop. This was hanging in a hobby shop. It was at Arcade Hobby, and the gentleman flew it in the Nationals and did quite well with it. And I remember seeing that hanging down there, and somebody told me that they have since closed, but somebody said that they had that hanging in the garage and asked me if I wanted it, and I said, yeah, heck yeah, I'll take it. So there it is. Great memories for me, but something that's been around for a long, long time. If you look up top, up there, those are very old helicopters when they first started making helicopters up there. And if you look on down, as he can walk on down if you want, there's several ships that you will not see anymore. And over here, we have a Cal Hobby that's radio control, 2-speed transmission, all-wheel drive. The customer, his name is Bob, he scratch built that trailer, and he found a bulldozer that was a toy and made it remote control. There are winches on the Caterpillar and there's winches on the trailer. He's got lights on the front that all blink. So up here is a plane that a young man named Mark Baldwin built for me. He said he actually had a couple beers that night. No. And once I gave him the kit, he goes, oh man, what did I get into? But anyway, he did a beautiful job building this. It's got retracts on it, flaps on it. It's got 2 engines that run on gas. The whole thing is built out of fiberglass, and he did a beautiful job on it. And then over here, up there is a model of one of the Enterprises. A customer built, he's let us keep it here. It's got lights in the hangar bay, lights all over it. Did a beautiful job on it. And here it sits, he lets us keep it here. Now over here, this is a helicopter I bought 20 years ago at Toys R Us. They don't make it anymore, but it looks awesome. And this white one here is a very early helicopter from the 70s. They didn't even have gyros back in there, so those guys that flew those were great pilots. Now that airplane up here, that's solid aluminum right here. And this is something that you would have seen in a executive's office or in a travel agency or something back in the 50s. So interesting. Over here, this is pretty much typical things that you would see in a hobby shop. You know, just tons of cars. We have a lot of, and over here, we have some models that different people built. Dylan Bragdon built this when he was 16 years old. He used to help me out in the shop. Kid's got incredible patience. He built this also, and this one. And these are things that people have built and let me keep here. These up here, I find, these are really interesting. They're pilots that you don't see anymore. They haven't made them for quite a while. And this here is really interesting. There used to be a customer named Dick Dean, and Dick made a lot of the movie cars. This was the Beverly Hillbillies car, and he signed it to Bob and Mel Dick Dean, 2004. He's since passed away, but very well known within the customizing industry. Super guy, super guy. So this right here is a flight simulator. We normally have it on. It's off right now, but anybody can come in and play with it, and it's actually what people use to learn to fly. So especially if you're doing helicopters, which are really, really hard to do, this thing is what you'd need, because you have to put in maybe 10 or 15 hours on this thing to get really proficient to where you could fly a helicopter without crashing them. So best thing they ever came out with. If you go out into the lobby area here, as you come in, you can see different models that people have built. Some of them are over here. Young man named Dylan did this again, 17 years old. This right here is a model that was given to us by a fireman. I forgot his name by now. But it is very incredible. If you look at the little wine bottles, you can see the glass in them and the wine in the bottom. That's how detailed they are, extremely detailed. You can see a few more. And then down on the bottom is a ship that two people built, Dylan Bragdon also, and a gentleman named Glenn, and I don't know his last name. But he's very proficient model builder. So I've got some great things for people to look at that will inspire you to learn to do whatever you're doing better. And these planes up here are people that's passed away. They've been donated. This particular airplane right up here, a gentleman donated this out of the Palm Springs area. This airplane was the Lindbergh's duplicate, so to speak, that the Russian people were making. 5 people flew in this around the world. They were flying into San Diego, and it was fogged in that night, and so they decided to land in San Jacinto, which is just a couple miles from here. So some neat history on it. So come on down. We'd love to meet you, and come enjoy the experience.